Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, different areas of the world. We are on day 15. I'm feeling a huge shift in my body, just physically. I don't know, just sleeping better. Lots of shifts, just physically feel stronger. Even though these movements are very gentle, I feel stronger. I feel more balanced in my body. I feel more fluid. I'm wondering what you're feeling. Okay, what we're going to do today needs two either towels or blankets. I have yoga blankets because that's my deal. Okay, but I'm going to take, and possibly a chair. You can do it without a chair. You can do it on a coffee table. But we're going to do a few supported things with props. So, towel. And I'm going to start with one. Again, the towels aren't as thick as a yoga blanket. Didn't quite get my camera held the right way. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll up. So I fold it in half and fold it in half again. So it's half of a width of a blanket. I don't know, it's about 2.5 feet wide. I'm just going to roll it up. And then I'm going to have my second blanket in case I need it. Right, so there's a little bit of height under my head if I need it. And you'll see where we're going. I'm going to put this roll kind of mid back area. And then this possibly for the head. So what I'm going to do is going to lower my mid back area onto the blanket, head in my hands. Good, I'm going to let my waist drop to the floor. And as I drop the waist to the floor, I'm doing this little, almost like a crunch. Even let the pubis tip towards the front lower ribs. And then I'm going to play with lowering. I want to keep the pubis moving towards the front lower ribs. So there's a little tone in the belly just to help elongate the lower back so the upper spine can bend. And even though it may not be far, right, it's not a big amount of height, it can feel like quite a lot, right? Because this part of our back curves the other way. Okay, so this is my setup. I'm going to change it. I'm not going to stay here for the moment. I'm going to bring I just want to feel what's happening to your back. Is your chin really high? See if you can lengthen or maybe even find a different spot on your back where you can get your neck as long as your lower back, somewhat. Okay, I am going to grab my head again, interlace fingers, traction my head away from my feet, still finding that posterior tilt in my pelvis. And I'm just going to lift my head, chin towards chest, and then lower my head. Right, so I'm just using this roll as a fulcrum to move around. Good. Just lifting and lowering. And then I'm going to move a little bit. So I'm moving. The two places that I like to play with are more higher up, closer to the base of the neck. That tends to be a very tight place in most of us, but especially in me, or particularly in me. I would say many people, that's a very difficult spot. And the other for women is the bra strap area, right? So kind of anywhere, I would say anywhere, shoulder blade area, below shoulder blades, bra strap area, very tight, right? It's a lot of containment of those ribs. We lose a lot of mobility depending on how tight our bra is, depending on how big our breasts are. Good, and then we're gonna let the head, find a place that feels good, that feels informative or important, and bring your head back. Take your arms out to the side. My knees are still bent. I'm going to take my feet a little wider. I let my knees tip to one side, let my head roll to one side. Slowly center. And to the other side. And the rolling creates a whole different, right now we get more of the rib cage. The ribs that connect to the spine. And extending out from the spine, wrapping around the lungs and connecting in the front to the sternum or to other ribs. So utilizing your breath, especially your inhale, to create space or fluidity or ease around like the spaces between the ribs, those intercostal spaces. And then coming back to center. Okay, let's play with this. Again, edit as much as you need. I'm going to take the right arm up to the ceiling. We have done this before without the support. Right arm across to the left. Be anywhere, it could be shoulder, upper arm, elbow. And then I'm going to take that right arm above. I'm going to trace that right arm around the head. So the arm can be bent. You can move more from your elbow or your upper arm. Your fingers can be on the floor. Your fingers can be off the floor. The arm can be straight. The arm can be bent. Whatever works for your shoulder. Just tracing around the head and out to the side. Let's do the other one. Lift arm up to the ceiling and across. And then around the head. Again, maybe use your breath, maybe in that under shoulder, armpit, side ribs. Under shoulder. And out to the side. Let's do that right arm again, right arm up and over. Again, you might notice that there's a little more ease each time. Again, letting the breath help you, inform you. Create space, create movement, left arm. And around. Out to the side. And again, one more time each side. And again, if it's not getting a lot easier, stay simple. Focus more on the breath. It's probably shifting a little bit. We're not looking for big shifts. We're more looking for, right, breath changes, sensation changes. And then I'm going to bring hands behind head again. I'm just going to scoot away from or towards the feet and let my head rest on the blanket. Some tips into a little bit of flexion. My ribs are able to come to the floor. Knees are bent, so the lower back is probably able to come to the floor. Arms out, feet again a little wide, and just letting the head tip to the right and the knees tip to the right. Just getting that little bit of rotation against the floor, against the blanket. One or two more breaths as you make your way back to center. Good. And roll to your side and come up to sit. Okay, so I'm going to take my second blanket. And my blanket already started to unroll a little bit, so I am okay, so I'm stacking my second blanket. Could be a towel, could be a blanket. Oops, let me pin my photo. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna stack two and then roll them up. So I'm just making a bigger roll than the first roll. Again, if you have towels, it might not be that high, and that's okay. You can always play with it later. So I'm gonna lay on my back again. And lift my heels up. So I'm up on the ball of the foot, lifting my sitting bones up and slide that roll. You can always unroll some of it or add another towel. There's a little bit of height. And it's really, really nice to lift the pelvis up above the heart and lungs and head. Right, this is a really great way to get used to inversions, having that shift of weight change, of blood flow. Good. And again, I'm going to take the arms out to the side, feet a little wider, and I'm just going to play by tipping the knees to one side. Letting the head also turn to that same side just helps the ribs and the waist follow a little. And then tipping the center and other side. And again, you can always change the height of your support. First side. And center. And second side. And center. One more time, first side. Even put a little bit of weight. So as my knees tip to the right, put a little weight into that left foot. And come through center. And press into that right foot, putting a little weight. And you'll notice that because of the height, there's a little more engagement in the back of the pelvis, or not necessarily muscular engagement, but engagement with the prop. And coming back to center. Good, and let's just play with taking one knee up. I'm just going to take my right knee, and I'm going to hold my knee with my hand. And I'm going to guide that knee out to the side. And I'm even going to let the pelvis tip a little to the right. Just to get a little compression in the right glute, and get, again, a little opening in that, the inner thighs, the front thigh of the left leg. And then bringing that knee back up to center. Switch hands, and I'm going to let that right knee come across the body. I'm going to let my pelvis stay heavy. Working on that, just that sense of that right leg coming towards the pubic bone, maybe even a little past the pubic bone, opening that outer line of the leg. And then maybe letting the pelvis roll This is also the most interesting because you get that left glute gets a nice little roll as you rotate through the waist. And then rolling back to center. Let's do one more, switching hands. And you can also fold that knee a little closer to the chest. If that feels good, right? If you don't roll off your roll, you can adjust yourself on the roll, but right hand guiding that right leg out to the right. Again, my left foot is still, so I'm getting just by the pelvis turning away from the leg, just a little inner thigh and front thigh, back hip, center, right leg crosses again. Get a little into that sciatic nerve and those glutes in the back, lateral rotators, and then letting the leg tip across, pelvis tips, rolling across the left hip, turning the waist. And maybe second time you can turn a little more. And then coming back to center. One more time, nice and easy, right and center. And left. And center. Good, and bringing that foot to the floor. Actually, let's take that knee back up. I'm just going to hold that right knee again with my right hand, and I'm going to let the left leg straighten. And I'm just going to turn the toes in and out. Well, I'm going to turn the toes in, and hopefully the knee and the thigh will come along and turn out and turn in and turn out, and maybe even sweep that leg side to side. Good, and then if it feels appropriate, you can take hold, interlace fingers around your shin and draw that right leg just a little closer to you. Again, you can just sweep that left leg side to side. I'm feeling it in a few different places, letting the ribs tip towards the floor as the knee comes towards you, letting the pelvis curl under or tuck, posteriorly tilt. And then let's bring both feet to the floor. Right, make any adjustments on your roll that you need. You can walk your ribs away. You can bring your hips further onto the roll if you feel like you're rolling off. And then left knee. And then let's take left knee out to the side. And slowly center. Again, I'm going to take that left knee across without turning the pelvis yet, just to get that outer knee to outer hip, a little through the glutes, sciatic nerve line. And then rolling, tipping the pelvis. And then rolling back onto the back of the pelvis. Right, each time you might have a little more release or access to more movement. Body understands. Left leg tips left. Again, you might feel a little in that front right thigh as the left leg tips left. You can even tip the head to give that pelvis permission to tip left. And center. And left knee goes to the right across the body, pelvis still heavy. And then letting the pelvis turn. Rolling across that right glute, and even just noticing the difference in the sensation or the bulkiness of the glutes from side to side, or the ability to turn. Come back through center. right. Switching to the left hand guides that left leg, pelvis turns to the left. Maybe even a little bit of weight in that right foot. This side is really different than the other side. It's very interesting. Left leg comes across again, pelvis stays heavy for a moment, and then turns, rolling across that right glute. Waist turns, and using your shoulders as a counterbalance, using your right leg as a little stopper. Good, and just pause at the top, and let's start with that, extending that right leg. And internally and externally rotating it, so toe and knee and thigh in, and toe and knee and thigh out. Good, and then maybe a little slide one side and then the other. Good. And then maybe interlace fingers around your shin or the back of the leg and draw that leg closer. Just separating the legs. Interesting to have this kind of long lever just sinking to the ground. Good. You can slide that leg, right and left. Good. And then release both feet to the floor. Good. Again, I'm just adjusting my body so I feel comfortable. Let's take feet together, knees apart. Again, I want the ribs to be heavy. Good. And then slowly lift the knees, and let's take the feet wide and drop the knees towards each other. Mine aren't touching per se, but they're tipped towards each other. And just a couple more breaths here. Really letting the weight of the feet settle and the weight of the hips and thighs settle. Good. Last breath. Okay. All right, last thing. Let's take right ankle onto that left knee. And I'm just going to let my legs sweep side, center, side. It doesn't matter. We're just going to hit both sides. So just a little sweep to one side and sweep to the other side. Just to give a little, again, just a little ease in the hip joint. Using that the movement, the sweeping movement and the rotation of that right leg. Good, and coming center. I'm going to wrap the right leg around the left leg and maybe sweep just a little bit more side to side. And again, all depends on your body and body shape. Even just a little movement, even just to feel where there's movement, where there isn't movement, what's possible, relationships, noticing the response, if they're tightening, is their breath. And then settle, uncross legs. Just notice what you notice. And then other side, left ankle, right thigh. Just doing a little sweep, side to side. And maybe even noticing the difference. Is there more ease or fluidity or stickiness or resistance? Are you aware of different things, right? Each side always feels very different to me. Maybe you think of it as far as tissues or flexibility, or maybe it feels like the rhythm is different, or my breath is different. Or one feels smoother, one feels, I feel edgier. Good. And then coming to center, wrapping that leg around. Again, doesn't matter how it wraps. And just a little side to side toggle. This is not very smooth. It's just really an exploration to find movement. And what movement, even no matter how small it is. And to find breath. And unwind the legs, feet to the floor. I am going to lift my heels again. I'm going to lift my sitting bones again. And roll the blankets or towels out. And then I'm just going to play with flipping this roll, the log, so it's in line with my body. And I'm going to step my feet on the roll. And I'm going to cross. I'm going to take the right leg in front of the left leg. Let the feet slide off of the roll so that the roll is holding my shins. And I'm in a little bit of a cross-legged position. Again, you can always walk your ribs away from the pelvis if you're being pulled into a little bit of back bend. It doesn't feel comfortable. Just breathe, take a nice, slow, long inhale. And a nice, slow, long exhale. And another slow, long inhale. And a slow, long exhale. Good. One more breath like that. And then just stepping the feet out one at a time, step back onto the roll and just crossing the left leg in front, letting the feet slide off so the shins are supporting you or being supported by the blanket. Again, you can walk your ribs away if, right, each side will be different. You might feel pulled to one side with one leg in front or pulled to one side. Doesn't matter what leg is in front. Just letting your breath allow the weight of the body and the support of the weight to have an impact, to have influence. Again, long, slow inhale. Long, slow exhale. You can even let your breath almost find the floor, back of pelvis, back of ribs, upper back, back of neck. Good. Lifting your knees, stepping your feet back on the roll. One more time, let's do Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees apart. Sometimes it's a little different with the feet lifted. If it's too heavy, you can put your hands under your outer thighs. And if the legs are pulling too much on the groin, you won't stay long lifting your knees. You can use your hands to do that. And then step your feet to the floor on the outside of the roll and let your knees open again. Notice what happens in the belly and the back and the breath and the groin. And you can always support your outer hips with your hands. Maybe using your hands to lift up. Good. Last thing, just a couple moments. Just gonna take could be a chair, could be a couch. You can even, if you don't have anything that accessible, you can just drape your knees over your roll. It's always easier to lay down. So I'm not gonna use a chair. And if you have mine doesn't have a back. So if you have a back, you can turn your chair sideways. I'm gonna lay on the ground. Hips close to the chair. I want to be able to get the backs of my knees and my heels on the chair somewhat. And then I'm going to again feet to the edge of the chair, lift the hips. You can always unroll the roll a little. Just having the legs elevated, hips elevated. Right, good for the lymphatic system, the circulation, right? The circulatory system. So kind of directing flow of blood and lymph back to the heart. Shifting, right? Having the legs elevated is also really good for not just blood flow from legs, but to brain and the lymphatic system of the brain, the glial cells. Also being able to find some ease in the breath, so making any adjustments, whatever that means, lowering the roll, the breath feels impeded. Just that sense of nourishment, being able to receive nourishment. So making any adjustments you need. So we're still in this window, right, of the solstice and these long days. Still a little bit of bright light at night from the moon. And all that it illuminates, all that it reveals and it asks us to look at. As well as the support of the nourishment. So we get both. We get that incredible amount of light as nourishment and support and fire and passion and life force. And as well as that clarity of what it is we're refining and moving towards, what needs change. And really, ultimately, what is for our greatest good? our highest good, individually and collectively. Mm. And when you're ready, you can always stay here. And when you're ready, feet to the edge of the chair, you can either slide the roll out or roll off of the roll to your side. And slowly come up to sit. Just one hand on heart, one hand on belly, just feeling your body. From your hands, feeling your hands from your body. And just keep going deeper in, feeling the surface, your skin, the breath. Feeling the quality of the felt sense within you, just your relationship to the environment around you, but also the felt sense of ease, of grace, connection. Wholeness, frustration, agitation, perspective, release.